best entertainment on the earth. Tune in for Comics with Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. You remember Star? How about Epic? Ultimate Line? I don't know, Vertigo? These are all imprints that DC did and Marvel did. Marvel did first in DC. Though, in fairness, most of those were Marvel, in case you're pulling your hair out with the details of what I just said. But imprints have been something that the comic companies have fooled around with for quite some time. DC obviously has Black Label right now, although Black Label is hard to understand what they means at DC exactly. Is it in continuity stuff? Is it out of continuity stuff? I mean, in theory, at one point, it was out of continuity stuff, but then it started to become in continuity stuff. And then DC seemed to say, well, kind of everything matters and nothing matters because omniverse reasons. And who really knows anymore? But whatever Black Label is intended to be, it's not that now. But there are some good books that come out of it. And then there's some clunkers that come out of there too, for that matter. But anyway, the imprints have been part of comics for a long time. And by and large, imprints have been successful. I think that there certainly have been some failures out of there. There's been some stinkers that have come up. What was the very, very short-lived Wonder Comics? Was that it? The Bendis imprint at DC that, did that last 2 years? I don't know. There's been others. Marvel's had some as well, where they just have not gone anywhere. But imprints typically have worked okay. The challenge with them, with imprints, is that there always seems to come to this point where the company goes, well, wait a minute, if they're making money, shouldn't they be part of the main line? Oh no, we're confusing customers. We could be making more money if we just integrated this stuff into the main line. And then they do that and they do not make money and stuff gets canceled, and then they wonder why they did away with the imprint and maybe they should bring it back. And I know, let's bring it back, but what they bring back is a shadow of the original, and then this game continues over and over and over again. I believe, at least I've heard some rumors, that Marvel is intending to do something with the Ultimate line again and start that experiment going. But it begs the question, like, why did you dump the Ultimate line in the first place? Now, the Ultimate line had gotten pretty confusing. They'd killed off several characters, and I think evil Reed Richards had blown up like half of Europe at that point. So I mean, there was maybe this sense like they ruined that universe pretty damn good. But regardless, that's if they bring it back, is it going to have the same success as the original? Probably not. At any rate, a reader writes in to ask the following. He says, hey, Perch, I will start by saying that I know this has failed before, but I'm wondering if they should give the old college try one more time. Would it be a good idea for Marvel and DC to create new imprints so they can try new genres? I ask this because you have said Marvel and DC need to have a wide range of genres like manga does. They do. The problem that I see with Marvel and DC trying to expand the line beyond superheroes is that when the consumer sees Marvel or DC's logo on the comic book cover, they expect superhero stories. Somebody ought to tell Marvel and DC that. It's what their brand is associated with. If I saw the Marvel logo on a horror comic, the consumer would probably expect to be something like Ghost Rider, and if they saw it on a science fiction comic, they would probably expect something like Guardians of the Galaxy. Marvel has tried this with Star for children's comics and New Universe for science fiction, and DC had Vertigo for pretty much everything that wasn't superhero stories with mature content. That's about right. I know that these have all folded, but I have a feeling that if they were, that was by mismanagement by the companies. You are 100% correct. If they were to create new brands and put a wall between them that don't mix, could that potentially generate a new successful line of revenue for the big two, assuming they don't mess it up by trying to fold it into the main line? Thanks. And it's Jeff, and Jeff says use his name, so thank you, Jeff. Well, I mean, absolutely, it can be done, and more importantly, it's usually successful. In a weird way, if you think about the amount of comics that have come out and either been rebooted, gotten canceled, doesn't work, or even the amount of experiments they've done with different writers, different artists that they bring into the company and then they disappear. The imprint idea has been pretty successful. I mean, if you're looking at percentages, the imprint has been successful far more often than almost any of the other things that they've tried. If you think about some of the titles that have come out, the percentage of a title succeeding and continuing past issue 100 is a much smaller percentage of everything they publish than their percentage of success with imprints. Now, what's the definition of success? It means it comes out, gets some interest. People do what you say. They look at it and they go, okay, this is Star. It's for kids. This is Vertigo. It's for mature. This is New Universe. I think New Universe, people saw science fiction. They also saw superhero, of course. Ultimate, this is superheroes for newcomers or people who are just sick of the, mainline crap. I mean, there's been, what was it, Clive Barker had a little universe. There's certainly been failures. No doubt about it. Like Wonder Comics. I think Wonder Comics. I can't even fully, I'm not even sure that's the name, which is another clear sign it failed. But if you're looking at just, as they say, shots on goal, shots of where they were trying something new and what got in the goal and what didn't, the imprints often worked. The thing that didn't work is, as you identify, it's mismanagement. It's when they come in and they start to screw around and they want to fold it into the main line, or they're like, this seems to be working. I know what's needed, a huge overhaul, so it works even more. And then it promptly fails. Many imprints, and this is probably worth a video at some point, talking about kind of the history of some of this stuff. Many imprints were started somewhat as a result of the comic publisher not paying attention, and an editor who was trying to just get around some logistics and got something going and wound up making some success and money. And then the senior management steps in and it's like, okay, what the hell is this? And then they start to tinker with it, and that immediately blows it all up. But a lot of them have that same origin story. Not the Ultimate line, but almost every other one you can think of. So not New Universe either, for that matter. But many of them are born out of that idea. It's weird. What's it? Young Animal was another one that that had other problems in how it imploded. But I think it's a good idea. I don't think that having the Marvel logo or the DC logo is as much a barrier as you say, but maybe for the most depressing reason of all. I don't know that logo means much to anyone. I mean, the Marvel logo right now means movies about superhero with action. And Marvel, the cinematic brand, the Kevin Feige controlled MCU, Marvel is trying to figure out if they can use that brand to be kids stories or comedies or horror. I feel like they were on a good track to do that, and it seems like stuff has slipped lately. They're during COVID, it kind of hurt their ability to kind of branch out with their brand. They still tried, but it got weird for them. But I mean, I know it's still on their mind, and if anything's going to get that going successfully, it's probably going to come from there rather than the comics. DC, what's weird is, and this is my own personal bet, I bet that more people know, they know Superman, they know Batman. They don't necessarily associate with DC. And I can only say that because a lot of people used to come into the comic shop and say, hey, I'm looking for that Marvel comic, Batman. And it's like, oh, that's a DC comic. It's like, no, I want the superhero, like the superhero stuff. It's like, no, that's DC, that's Batman. But DC characters tend to be identified, or the brand tends to be identified more with the characters and a lot less with with the actual label. That's just how they tend to go. That speaks to a weakness in their brand, in DC, in the logo. But anyway, be that as it may. Your idea is not wrong, though. I mean, they could always do Marvel Presents Horror or something else. It's just when they're doing the imprint, the one thing I think they could do better is don't get too fancy with it. Just keep it really simple. Like, this sounds really boring and very vanilla, but maybe you just call it Marvel Horror, Marvel Kids, Marvel Sci-Fi. And you may get all excited about creating a brand like, hey, it's Gray Brick, and Gray Brick means alternative horror comics, because that's what we make. But then you have to teach people what it means, and I think there's a bit of an exhaustion. People want just good stories, and so what they'd really like to do, and I mean even more boring than this, if they start to put a little box underneath the Marvel or the DC logo on the cover, someplace at the top where it can be indexed on a comic shelf, and it said horror, sci-fi, family. By the way, there's a lot of comic fans right now are cringing at this idea. But if your goal is to appeal to the normies and bring in kind of new audiences by just clearly identifying what it is, not a bad idea. I'll tell you, in my conversations with people at Barnes and Noble, you know what they would love? They would love for Marvel and DC and Image to align on their trade dress, meaning make the spine look mostly the same, so when it goes on the shelf, it doesn't look like a design Frankenstein, bunch of crap. And then literally put a tiny, like a rectangle at the bottom of the book or the top that says horror. Then put whatever you want, logo, number, etc. But just brand the genre. They're convinced, and I think they're absolutely right, that if they did that, they would sell a ton more graphic novels. Because that's how people who are non-comic readers tend to come to that section. Like, hey, I've been watching movies. I know a lot of these are based on graphic novels. I watched The Umbrella Academy. I'm calling that sci-fi because in my mind that's sci-fi. So I'm going to look for the sci-fi section of the graphic novels, try and find this. And they quickly discover there is no sci-fi section or any other section by genre. And then they start looking into the title, Umbrella Academy, and they quickly discover that no, it's actually listed in the image section of the graphic novels under Umbrella Academy. So now, but the image doesn't mean anything to these people. It's just like you're making it too hard. But I do think that genres would be a good idea. I think that some branding and some imprints. That's the thing. It's been successful a lot more than it's failed. So of all the dumb ideas comics has tried over the decades, like that one's not bad. So maybe do more of that one. It's worth a shot. Like you lean into the stuff that has worked, and do that. I think it's smart. Anyway, thank you very much for the question. And let me know if you have a question. You can write me using the description in the video, and let me know what you think. Would an imprint work? Do you care? Not care? Again, my suspicion is a lot of longtime comic collectors, people who are in this space already, they wouldn't be fond of this idea. They already get it. But that's the thing. If you're trying to get new people, here's branding it simply so that new people can figure out what's going on is going to be a lot more successful than, say, creating a trans supporting character that's going to appear in issue 3 for 2 pages, and you get an article somewhere in Gizmodo that you did this, and that's supposed to hook normies. But guess what? They don't even know that character is in there. Even if they are looking for that, they have no idea. So make it easier for them. That would be a good idea. Anyway, thanks for listening.